Lesson 33, topic, the nature of time. Greetings, brothers and sisters. I wanted to talk to you about the nature of time, how it interacts with reality, and how you can visualize time and the events that occur in each temporal space. First, remember that time does not exist as a separate entity. The present cannot be separated from the past or the future. Everything forms a unity. All three exist simultaneously, but the level is different from reality and therefore has a different definition with respect to the density in which this temporal evolution has solidified. When you interact with your environment and make decisions, you are changing your present and therefore the future according to your beliefs. However, this isn't entirely true. You are also interconnected with the past. The decisions you make in the present interact with the past and feed back into each other, reaching a point where the next event that might occur isn't necessarily the one you are deciding on at that moment. It depends on how the past and the future interrelate. Let me give you an example. Imagine a situation where you are at a crossroads. You have three options available. You take the middle one and walk along it. At a certain point, an incident will occur. Well, that incident isn't only related to the decision you made before taking that path, but also to what happened in your past that was connected to that decision, and that changes the imminent future. After making that decision, the past has a great deal of influence. In each case, it will be different, but the decision will have little to do with your will and a great deal to do with the interaction of the past and the present, and with the part of your brain and mind that is responsible for making decisions. You are not as isolated and as independent as you think. Therefore, what happens on that path after you have made the decision is not at all predictable, or even if you know what lies ahead and all the available options, there will always be some surprise, and this is due to the relationship of the past with the present you have chosen, and that changes the whole situation, making it totally unpredictable. Now, let's talk about the future. The future, once you have made the decision to take the middle path, is already defining at least one, two, or three possible futures. That future doesn't just depend on what's on that path you initially chose, on all the elements interacting with you in the present. It also depends, as I said before, on your relationship with the past, and that changes the future in a completely unpredictable way. Likewise, the future that hasn't yet been created, that hasn't solidified in your physical dimension, is interacting with your present, and that, in turn, modifies the events that can happen in your present, and thus changes the future. As you can see, it's not simple at all. Nothing is predictable. That very nature of the present, past, and future, and the nature of reality itself, determines that it's feasible, when one is in an altered state of consciousness, to accept that temporal dimension, to see the possible options, all the elements related to that decision, and therefore choose the best path. Provided we have taken the precaution of meditating beforehand, communicating with the Father, and that He communicates to us what the best option is for what is to happen next. The paths are infinite, the possibilities are infinite, but if you have seen the destiny or the path that awaits you, which is already defined by the tendencies that the Father has created for you, it will be easier to see the possible futures, which will already be much more defined. They will not be so infinite because your search only has to be within a certain time frame, and it will also be within a certain range of related elements. With that decision, once you know which elements are related, it is easy to determine the elements that need to be analyzed, the temporal relationships that connect them all, and therefore you will be able to see what awaits you. The process to see this is as follows. I have previously explained to you the nature of time and of reality, at least superficially. Now I am going to explain the process of seeing your past, present, and future. The first thing you need to do is meditate in a deep state, activating all the energy centers in your head. I imagine you already have some experience with this. It's a bit difficult and requires a lot of practice. Once you have activated all the energy centers in your head, which are intimately connected and where energy flows easily, once your chakras are activated, and once your connection to the earth is so strong that you have managed to make energy flow from the earth to the sky through you, then you have the ability to perform this process. To see the temporal evolution you desire in any person, in any environment, or at any point in time. Once everything is activated, you can see the time period you are interested in, the environment you are interested in, and with that person, entities, or related elements that interest you at that moment, or in the past or future. The idea is that the mental body, you know it has a mind, well, you have to get that mind to leave the body. It's simple. Once you have lost all the attachments because the energy centers are activated, the mind leaves on its own. You just have to direct it upwards. At the same time, you communicate with the Father, with the universe, and you ask a question. Do you want to know what happened during a certain period, or what's happening to you, or what will happen in a certain place and at a certain time? You ask the Father and the universe. I repeat. You wait a little while, and suddenly you will see how the mind passes through one or more energetic layers, filled with many colors. In some cases, there will be many colors. In others, there will be darker colors. It all depends on the environment you are going to. Once you have arrived at the place, you will see how the elements are related to each other, how the energy circulates, how they communicate with each other, and how these elements interact with their environment. At the same time, if your mental state is sufficiently elevated, you will perceive all the energy in that environment. You will see that the energy is intelligent, that it has its own mind. This energy creates the Father, but in turn, it is modified by the elements in that environment. Once you have reached that level and have asked the Father, the time period, the environment, and the elements will already be chosen because you have previously made the request by formulating the question. It remains to formulate the question about the time period. Once you have asked the question about the time period, the answer may take a little while to appear. The Father, the universe, must decide whether you should know the whole truth. The same things will appear as before, food interacting with each other, energy flowing, and you will see it like a movie, everything in motion. The Father will offer you the vision of what you should know. The Father will know what you shouldn't see, and if it is unavoidable, you will see it too. The Father, in His immense wisdom, knows the information He must provide. Sometimes, when you are in this altered state of consciousness and you can see what is happening like a movie, sometimes you can interact with the elements. You can speak with them because they are intelligent. They are on another level of reality. Sometimes you can convince them to make the right decision, but that is far beyond your level. You do not know reality. You do not know the Father's designs. This is very complex. Be content with seeing what may happen, seeing the possible trends. Later, when you have much more experience and practice in visualizing temporal processes, you will be able to interact superficially with the elements, but that will come later. That will come in later steps. I will explain it in another lesson. An important step you must take when you begin this process of visualizing time is that you will reach a point where the level of communication with higher angelic entities will be very high. This is a good sign. You will already have a direct link with the Father, with His higher intermediaries, and the information He will provide you will be much greater and of higher quality. At this level, you will see everything as a unified whole, much more perfect than the previous level, and your learning will be greater. You will be able to interact with the elements at a slightly higher level than the previous, very superficial one, and you could even engage in conversations and change behaviors. Changing behaviors requires creative magic. I think I've already explained that. Ideally, you should first achieve a good temporal vision, and only after passing through this level can you then perform the creative magic, not the other way around. This way, you get much more out of meditation, and the result obtained is usually of much higher quality. But We will talk about that in another lessons. So till then, see you soon, brothers and sisters.